Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I'm coming to you today from a very misty and drizzly French morning. I set up this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career, and I would love it if you could help too by subscribing, liking and rating the show. It really would mean a lot. Today I'm joined by Laura Marson. Originally from Charleston in South Carolina, she now finds herself 7 years after her original career break in Colombia. Laura is a slow traveller, a chef, a blogger and a travel coach who has had an unexpected life abroad since 2017. We chat about how Laura left her life to indulge in exotic places and be surrounded by daily awe, but by asking a stranger for direction, she got way more than she bargained for. We discussed the emotional tugging of the heartstrings when you leave a place deep down, knowing that you may not be back, how keeping plans loose and chatting to people whilst travelling can change the trajectory of your adventure and even your life, and how being stranded in Botswana during COVID for 8 months, living in a Land Rover, provided her with the space, time and inspiration to start writing her travel stories and birth her new business. All this and much more. Deep down, you've tried, deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you. Hi Laura, and welcome to Sabbatical Stories. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you and your time.
Well, thanks so much for having me back. It's been so great to see you again and catch up with you.
I'm very excited for this. And because it's exactly that, your sabbatical story, could you please give us an introduction to Laura, who you are, and give us a bit of an insight into your sabbatical story?
So I'm American. I grew up with a mother that was a workaholic and a father that was very project oriented. There were never holidays or vacations or anything like that. Where I grew up, I decided that's not how I wanted to live. And when I wanted to have that time for myself. Now, at the point that I'm at, I am currently in Colombia. I've spent the past 7 years traveling, living in Austria, South Africa, had a nice long stint in Botswana during 2020 and have evolved those travels and basically my big sabbatical into a career of travel and life coaching. I have a blog that follows that. So
fabulous. So take us back 7 years. What did life look like before you took to the road?
I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. I had been there for 17 years. I had gone to school there, developed friendships and a life and myself. I got a notice that the apartment that I had lived in for 12 years, the rent had gone up. I was working at the time. I was cooking in an incredible restaurant, but I was spending all my time there. I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I'm earning all this money, but I'm also never at the place that I love to be at. And I don't have a dog. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have any other responsibilities. I don't have a mortgage. Do I stay in this apartment? Do I stay working in this job that I'm pouring 60 hours a week into in a really high stress environment? And so I decided I wanted to have that time for myself. Now, manic conversation of going around my options, I just had this moment of clarity saying, oh, I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to travel the world for a year. I'm going to backpack and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to have all the experiences that I didn't have, like growing up and I didn't have up until this point. That's kind of where it just clicked for me. I said, I need to figure this out. I need to figure out how to do this.
And how did you plan for that year backpacking?
I had to let go of the apartment that I had built my identity in. I moved to a trailer close to work in this farm, had like a series of rotating roommates. I needed to earn additional money. And then I bought a world map and it was a sticky map that had like a white erase that you could write on it. And I stuck it to my wall. On there, I had all the places that I wanted to go. And I just and then my friends, they started adding their names to my map. And they're saying, oh, I wanted to always go to Ireland and I I want to go to Greece, and can I meet you in Sri Lanka? And I was like, yes, of course. So I started drawing all over this map, and I had my list of visa requirements, and I just went through everything that I could think of is what would be my dream year look like. And I just downsized, and I just started saving my money, just changing my values of what was important. Was it going out to restaurants all the time? Was it drinking all the time? Like when I would get off of work, I had never saved my money. I had never had a goal that big before. It was a lot about shifting my values. But once I had made that decision, that was a very easy thing to do. I thought that I would work for 1 year and then go. And what ended up happening was I still wanted to have my life there and my friends and go to a concert if that was happening. So that 1 year extended to, I added an extra 6 months. In that time, it just gave me a little bit more financial relaxation to enjoy my life as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? I remember emigrating both times, UK to Sydney and then Sydney to France. And it's always those, oh no, we've got a wedding. Oh, but it's so-and-so's big birthday. Oh, but so-and-so's giving birth, and so it'd be really nice to meet the baby. And it's like, actually, you'll never go. It's like pulling a plaster off, isn't it? You've just gotta land. So how did you really motivate yourself to stick to that next 6 months and go actually at the end of that 6 months?
On that world map, I had written, this is why I work. I worked in a high stress, misogynistic kitchen that was it. I left there often in tears and like very stressed out. Leaving that job did not feel like a problem for me. I didn't tell anyone at work that I was doing this because I also felt that they would demotivate me in a way that was like, you can't do this. You can't, you're a small girl. One of them actually said, you're going to end up in the back of someone's car. Like having someone that like say that to you was really trying to get that verbiage like out of my head. And don't put your fears on me. I'm dealing with my own. And I think the hardest thing for me was leaving my friends and thinking I thought that I would go back to that city. I thought I would go back to Charleston, but I also had seen Charleston grow in a way that I didn't like. So many more people were moving there and it was just busy. And so I think the hardest thing for me was knowing that I was leaving my friends, but not sure if I would be going back. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. I always remember leaving to go to Sydney and promising everybody that I would be back in 2 years. It was just a 2-year period of fun, and standing in my mum's kitchen. And she said to me, Rebecca, you do realise that it will never be the same. You won't come back to this life. And I said, no, absolutely, of course I will. Of course, this is just, we're just going for a 2-year, period of fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, is you are leaving, you're doing this, this big break that will hopefully be life-changing. And also there is kind of this hope that you would return and it would just be normal.
It's a safety blanket, I think, isn't it? It's that whole, well, do you know what? If everything goes to shit, this is fine. Like, it's not that horrific. It's fine. The break came about because of the rent going up in your apartment, not being totally happy at work. So that those were the sort of different elements that prompted it. The actual break that you were going to take was this dream of travel that you hadn't done yet and you hadn't experienced growing up or as a young adult. What other plans or goals, I suppose, did you have for that year backpacking, if any?
I wanted to experience everything. I wanted to eat everything. I wanted to indulge in these incredible, exotic places. I wanted to feel the grittiness and also be in awe. It wasn't like a tick, 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 tick list of this is my bucket list. And it was more like I just want to dive into something new and greater than me.
And was the plan always 12 months and then to return?
The plan was 12 months. The plan originally was, I don't know, you had 34 countries. That was way too much. and, and I had this idea, 34 countries and a year, and that was what it was going to be. And it didn't turn out like that at all.
So where did it take a turn?
Rwanda. So I had met this couple in Greece, and I was with my sister at the time, and she said, and we were talking with these guys, and they said, "Oh, you're traveling around the world. Have you considered going to Jordan?" I'm like, "No, like I had not considered going to Jordan." "Oh, you must go to Jordan." I said, okay, like sold. You're selling me on Jordan. I'm going to go to Jordan. So like after a few months of being in Europe and then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Jordan. So my plans, I kept they were more fit also because I was meeting certain friends at the time. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Jordan. These guys said it was an incredible time there. I'm going to go. And I went. I was like, this country's amazing. This is epic. I mean, beautiful architecture and history. And then you also have the Red Sea and the Dead Sea and amazing scuba diving. I had never scuba dived before. And so after I leave Jordan, I called them up and I'm like, oh my God, where do I go next? And they're like, you must do a gorilla trek in Rwanda. I was like, well, I guess it's going on my list. That whole trip evolved from those people just giving me a bit of advice and opening up this door. Several months later, I meet this woman she's from Tanzania. I say, I'm planning on going to Rwanda. She said, oh, well, you must come to Tanzania. That's where I'm then, okay, I'll check it out. She's like, you stay in my home and you'll go on safari. My grandmother lives at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro. My sister lives in Zanzibar, and you stay with them. I'm like, well, I guess like Tanzania and Rwanda, I'm looking at the map. They're right next to each other. So I guess I'll do that. Sure enough, I had not seen her again. This was a 20-minute bus ride in Austria that I had this conversation with her. We stay in touch. And in September, I end up staying at her house and making that my home base. And all of a sudden, here I am in Africa, going on safari and doing these gorilla treks. And then I met who would become my husband in Rwanda in a little convent on a lake, and was a group of travelers there. And he appreciated how I had organized all of us to do these boat trips. And he said, well, do you want to travel through Namibia together? I said, yeah, okay, let's do that. We ended up being travel companions. And then after a few weeks more, he had been living in South Africa. So here I am now in South Africa, extending my visa, but also knowing that I still want to travel and I still want to go to Asia. And it just evolved into that. And I went to Asia for 3 months and then I said, okay, well, I guess I'm coming back to South Africa. And so I went back to South Africa, and he's originally from Austria. He said, well, this company, they've offered to relocate me to Austria. Do you want to move to Austria? I said, yeah, I guess we're moving to Austria. And so that 1 year ballooned into 2.5 years. I didn't see any of that coming.
You wanted awe at the beginning of your trip.
I wanted everything.
That sounds like awe. You wanted all the things. It sounds like you got all the things and more.
I got all the things. I had budgeted for a year. I had lived on a credit card for a year after that.
Did you go to Asia on your own or with your now husband?
I did. No, I went on my own. He had been traveling. He had been traveling through Africa, overlanding with a car, and I still wanted to keep my that strength and independence that I had gained from backpacking alone. And when he met me, I always say he met me at my most confident and most independent walking into Congo. He really respected that and valued that. and he wasn't going to take that from me. So when I said I'm going to Asia, I was again like crying, and I can't believe I'm leaving this person. I can't believe I'm leaving this life I've created in South Africa. But I said, okay, I've got to go. I've got to keep doing this.
And you owed it to the map that you had on your wall, stuck there for 18 months, huh?
And it was this just burning desire to be there. And I thought that I would end up most of my time in Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia. I didn't think I would spend a year in Africa. Like, that wasn't on my radar.
Amazing. So, I mean, talking about pivotal moments, meeting your now husband obviously was a huge pivotal moment. But what challenges did you face traveling as a single female, you know, before you met up with him and traveled together?
Some places were hard to get a lot of attention. Morocco was especially hard, like Marrakesh, and in parts of India where you would just get a lot of attention. There was also this feeling of, when traveling alone, you have to make all of the decisions, which is fantastic because you can decide what you want to do, where you want to eat, how you want to live your day.
Go to Jordan on a whim.
Sure, absolutely. So you have that flexibility, but it's also, you are making every decision, every logistical decision, everything from where you're going to sleep, how you're going to get there, what are you going to do, what do you want to experience, what do you want to eat. While it doesn't seem to have so much, it accumulates. So I found that there would be certain times where I just felt burnt out, and I had travel burnout. Part of that was just moving too quickly and, wanting to experience everything. So your days are filled from 5 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night. And it just sort of becomes a bit wearing.
What tips have you got to maintain balance whilst you're on the road?
Now I travel a lot slower. So finding and knowing that there is not the expectation for perfection, for this perfect trip. So things will come up, things will happen, but also maintaining a sort of mental balance and I always find like a recharge in green spaces or in blue spaces. So making sure that you're balancing your life with like getting into nature and just finding that time of reflection as well, I think is also important.
Yeah, it's so easy not to carve that time out into your day or your week, but it is so important to do so. I'm sure you will have lots, but is there one particular memorable story that springs to mind through your travels?
For me, so many things have happened because of being open. So it's not having one particular story. It's being open to the possibilities of adventure or opportunity at any point. After that 2.5 years, I went back to the States because I was broke and I hadn't seen my family and my friends and that 2.5 years. And I hustled and worked and was working from 4 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, doing 3 jobs. I, in that time, paid off my credit card debt and saved. And in that time, we also got married. We ended up in Botswana for our honeymoon at the beginning of 2020. That lasted through
COVID.
No. through 8 months. So for that was...
You got stuck for 8 months?
Yeah.
Or you were always going to be there for 8 months?
We were going to be there for 3 weeks. We got stuck there for 8 months. And fortunately, living in the Land Rover that my husband had already had and a lifestyle that we had already created for ourselves. So it was very adaptable. But being open for another sabbatical was not expected. And that was an 8-month safari. That opportunity will never come again. And it only worked by the way that we were meeting people and being open to possibilities.
Okay, a couple of questions on that. The first one, 8 months, unexpected sabbatical.
Yeah.
Logistically and sort of financially, how did you make that work?
So we had the Land Rover with solar, bed, fridge. So and water and diesel. Like it was meant to live off grid. So when you are living in the bush for 2 weeks, you are not spending the money in in a restaurant. So for us, it was very economical to be living in that way. It was not expected, but we tried to make the most of it and decided that we were just going to do circles through Botswana. I don't know, to explore and also to buy our time. Like we couldn't leave. The visas hadn't been processed for as a married couple for residency in certain places in Austria, South Africa, and the US. So it was like the only option for us was to stay together in Botswana. Financially, at that point, we were being very frugal, but also living in the bush. So the unexpected sabbaticals are also worthwhile. You can also gain something from that time of being unemployed.
What was your biggest lesson from that 8-month sabbatical?
To just embrace the unexpected. During that time, I decided to launch. I had the time, so I wrote down my travel stories and I started a blog in that time. After, I don't know, 5 months, I said, I need a roof over my head. I need to be able to read in bed, sitting up. And then that just prompted me. I needed to have some purpose as well. And I think that was the biggest lesson was I didn't want to just be floating by. I wanted to have purpose as well.
My other question that I thought about was you talk about being open to opportunities and that actually the most beautiful stories come from the unexpected. What's your advice on how to position yourself to be open or become open to those possibilities?
Talk to people, have the conversation. It's okay to be the weird person that comes up to someone and say, hey, do you want to have a conversation, on a train or on a bus or in a cafe? It's about being physically open and just keeping your mind open to other people's stories, to other people's lives. Ask questions, listen. It's amazing how far that goes, when people want to be heard and they want to share their life and their experiences and their stories and their passions. And oftentimes they want to invite you into that. I think that is something that's really special, that we lose those connections. And sometimes people are a bit off-put with, or not off-put, surprised that someone is going to say, hey, let's chat.
Did you start the conversation with the lady on the bus who lived in Tanzania that you then ended up staying with?
I asked her for directions.
So that's how the story started.
And it was just asking for directions. She saw me with a backpack. She said, oh, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going here, but I'm doing this 1-year trip around the world. And I saw her again. She still lives in Austria. We live now Austria is one of our home bases, and we live 2 hours away from each other. And I saw her in September. That was the first time after 6.5 years that I had seen her. She hasn't changed.
And thanked her for your husband.
Thanked her for the incredible opportunity to just be part of her life. I didn't see her in Tanzania, but I met her sister and her friends and her brother, and and that was an opportunity of just being open and kind, and and there's incredible kindness in the world,
and travel certainly does open our eyes to that, doesn't it? There's nothing else like it, I don't think. Talk us through how life compares now and what life looks like now in comparison to prior to that first sabbatical.
I'm in Colombia right now, so I'm learning Spanish. We've been here for 3 months, and one of the things that after 7 years of travel and from that original sabbatical was I wanted to have more immersive experiences. So slow everything down and also build in those routines, those healthy habits, and keep those in the forefront. Fortunately, my partner, my husband, he also values sabbaticals. For me, it's not just about having a long break. It's having that weekly break where you're defining your work time to your play time. And this is your weekend. This is your time to yourself. And it can be on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, or it can be at the end of the workday, but cutting it off and saying, this is my precious time. This is why I work. This is the reason. It's to enjoy my life. I want to have purpose in my work, but I also want to have purpose in my life.
Working to live, isn't it?
It is.
Rather than the other way around. You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you're now a life and travel coach. So give us an understanding of where that fits into the 7 years. Like, at what point did that become the road that you were going to go down, and what have you done to build that?
So I love like writing things down and just having these loose goals. And sometimes they come and sometimes they're later. And in 2014, I found a journal that said that I was going to be a life coach. And I had always really valued the importance of mental health. I knew that I didn't want to go down the field of psychology. I wanted to do some form of coaching. After trying to figure out what to do remotely, working in Austria or South Africa that I could take with me, I was like, you know what? Now is the time that I'm going to get my coaching certification, that I am going to get my ICF certification. So I started that journey in 2022. After that 8-month sabbatical had turned into an actual year and a half, another one. That was the thing that said, okay, well, now I'm coaching. What am I going to coach on? What do I have this experience in that I would love to help people with? Oftentimes it's getting over those self-limiting beliefs that there's not enough money, that there's not enough time, that you have to have someone to travel with. And I coach a lot on overcoming those self-limiting beliefs, because at one point I had those, to be able to help people find that work-life balance, find that balance in their life, and embrace the life part of it. I find really rewarding.
And if you had to give the audience a top tip on overcoming limiting beliefs, where would you start?
It would be defining what it is that you really want in your life. What has great importance to you? What would you regret not doing? And put that in the now. If you've always wanted to do, I don't know, hike Kilimanjaro, whatever it is, put that into, how can I make this happen in my life now? Not in retirement, not when you are, do the things that you can while you're young, because this is when you have the energy, and this is when you have the flexibility and the mobility, and embrace those things and then reflect on it later.
Love it. Is there anything that you, looking back, would have done differently, either leading up to that first sabbatical or during that unexpected 8-month sabbatical?
Leading up to it, I would have wanted to feel more confident with going into it. There were so many emotions involved in it that I didn't feel like I was really appreciating the planning part of it. One minute I would feel so excited, and the next minute I would feel like, what am I doing with my life? Like, and I would have liked to have had the confidence of being really self-assured, saying, like, all the time, saying, this is a great decision. This will be a decision that will impact your life for the positive, and feel and really own it.
And not listen to those voices that are telling you will end up in the back of a boot of a car, or
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so not listening to other people's fears and their inexperience as well. They've never been, so don't put that judgment on me. And not letting that feed into what I already have emotionally going on. Also, when taking a sabbatical, that is the time, like, for yourself and for your own life. You don't have to give that to to a job or to an employer. It is yours, and appreciate that and value.
And on that note, in what ways did your sabbaticals contribute to your personal growth?
Oh gosh, it gave me self-confidence and self-assurance, making very concrete decisions. Was able to it has a plethora of resume builders, and not to mention it just really allowed me to center and find more of myself, what it was that I was passionate about, what it is that I'm interested in, what it is that I'm not interested in, who I want to spend my time with, how I want to spend my time. And having that time that a sabbatical offers gives you time to explore yourself and explore everything around you.
Yeah, I always harp on about intentional time, but also sacred time. And I think that is the magic and the beauty of a career break or a sabbatical, is that it is sacred time. It allows us to be so intentional around questioning and being curious about ourselves, that then the gift it gives us is being able to move forward intentionally.
Yeah.
What a wonderful way to end our discussion, and thank you so much for your time. What I do like to do is leave our listeners with your top 3 tips that you would be giving them if they were thinking about, considering, or curious about a career break or sabbatical, or about to embark on one.
I would say, number 1, do it. Like just do it, as Nike would say. You are only going to have this time in your life where you are youthful and physically able, and don't save those experiences that you always want to do for retirement. Do them when you're young. Do them when you're able. So that would be my first. The second would be setting some sort of goal, and with that, you may have to change your values, how you see money, how you see your time, embracing that with knowing that this is something that you've always wanted to do. That's okay. The third would be, I would say, being open to the possibilities during that sabbatical, staying true to yourself, but being open to strangers and kindness and opportunities, because you don't know where it's going to lead. And at the beginning, you had said that you had this expectation that you would return from Australia to live your life back in the UK. Like nothing had changed. The truth is you are going to change. You are going to grow. You're going to develop. And to embrace that newness is a wonderful way to settle back into this idea that you're stepping into something.
Thank you. What wonderful 3 tips. And I think my favourite certainly is that third one, and just being open to the possibilities. And your story absolutely proves how amazing being open can be. And Laura, if people want to find you, engage you from a coaching perspective, where is the best place to find you?
So I have the blog, and the coaching site is adynamiclife.co.za, and you can find my coaching page attached to that.
Brilliant. And I will put all of your contact details in the show notes. Thank you so much once again for your time, and lovely to catch up with you, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And it's like she said, we're all affected, yeah. And it's like he said, I won't let it out.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Sabbatical Stories. I really do appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to join us. Thanks heaps to Laura for sharing her extremely adventurous sabbatical story. I want to remind us all that a sabbatical is yours and yours only. Laura's details and her business website, A Dynamic Life, will be in the show notes, so please do reach out and connect with her. Thank you, as always, to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my amazing, patient and talented producer. I also want to give a special shout out to the incredibly talented Joanna Cook, whose soulful blend of smooth vocals we're lucky enough to use throughout the show. If you're interested in sharing your story on Sabbatical Stories, please do get in touch. Message me on Instagram, sabbatical_stories, or find me on LinkedIn at Rebecca Thomas. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe, like and rate the show. It really would mean a lot to me. Also, if you think a friend will like this episode, please do buzz it over to them. After all, sharing is caring. Until the next time, take care and dream big.
Let's get